in order to attach to his power and authority and destroy the Philistines. But because the woman she wanted was not given unto him, then he devised every other means and attracted the anger and the wrath of God. Except that God is merciful. What about Herod? King Herod, that decided to take his brother's wife, and when John the Baptist told him that what he was doing was wrong, he was shot. The woman, in order to get that successful man, devised every other means in order to get his head cut off. Do you remember how long Jacob walked? By the time he finished his first 7 years, for the woman he wanted, he did everything by doing another one in order to get the woman he wants. The nature of man and the relationship and the society that you are creating. The world is creating and causing confusion and creating problems. Then why not solve the problem of inequality? Why not solve the problem of opportunity by finding and then bringing policies that seems to provide the needs of men at least, so that they can be able to make a living. People now make children by mistake, and rather they want to kill them because they don't have the means to take care of the children. And they, oh no, we're not ready for that. If they have a means, maybe the children will not be killed. There will be no need for abortion and all this confusion going on around today. People will not be thinking about killing another woman because they were pregnant and the woman wants the baby and the man doesn't want the baby and decides to plan to kill the woman, and so that they will never have a baby. They don't want to be embarrassed. Maybe if the woman is okay and able to raise the child, they wouldn't be thinking about that and could raise the child by themselves. Conflicts and violence. Do you see the work of man and how man cause problems for themselves? So for those of you that are familiar with the Pareto principle, then you will be able to know what we are talking about. Or some people call it the square root rules. So you see that man in itself and its nature sometimes cause their own problem, however you look at it. And that is why in today's Bible school that we have given you an example of the conflicts. And we started by studying the conflict in the world, the people that are related to Abraham that were envious of the abundance he had, and even though God had blessed them, and even though they are believers and unbelievers and have turned against the rules and commands of God and worship all kinds of gods and etc., you will see the same thing happening in the society today. Thousands and thousands of years. So we call you the soldiers today for you to begin to pray. And first of all, we want to look into education, for example, in most of the cities. The amount of deceptions and lies, and in lack of care and concern for one another and for the neighbors and for the society. Why? Why will someone, based on empirical research, knows that if people could finish and go to college, they get a chance of never being poor. So why are we not investing in making sure everybody goes to college? And those that are unable to go to college, because everybody who is not a college material, we already have an established evidence of what made America great. Majority of the half of our people have a high school education. On the average, makes at least $57,000 or $50,000. Depends on the way inflation has been kicked in, maybe $50,000. How can somebody who makes $50,000 be poor in America and not be able to support a family? The truth is that such a person, the entire family, in the context of what we call a family, will never be poor. If we have people who are looking for jobs, and what can be done to help them to get into jobs, but instead we have a situation where They want to go to high schools and go to middle schools and even elementary schools, and the kind of quality of education that are given them, compare it to other countries, even in third world and developing world. Compare it to the education you give to people in China and people in India. But we have the most pristine institutions. But instead they want to create a parity of inequality, where some people in some schools get a very bad education. Now they come up to say that when you have 60% you say pass. So you want people that you want to progress, to be successful, to be in labor force, but in school you are teaching them nothing. And you call that leadership, an investment into our children and the future leaders of our country. And how do you expect our country to still remain great? How can they compete with nations like China? But you are quick to take people from China and bring them here because they're smart. You bring people from India and give them all the most important positions here because they're smart. But you don't want to make an investment into the future of our own people. And they call that leadership. You call that governance. You call that power and the authority. You have schools that are not well equipped, well furnished. Curriculum that decided to, instead of focusing on making and training somebody to produce and become a worker that can come out of high school and go to work, or out of college and go to work. But we produce people who are incompetent, people who come and leave it for people, for the businesses. Small business to increase takes $25,000 to train one employee or one worker. Another burden on the small businesses that employs more than 3/4 of our people. This is the kind of leadership that we have. And they say they want America to remain great. I see people who are doing policies that is purely calculated to destroy our country. You can find teachers, and you have teachers who are